Twitter, and LinkedIn.
I
So
don't know if I've ever been on all those things at the same time before. So this is nice.
I
First
know.
experience.
It's awesome multitasking, right? We can be on so many different streams at once. I love it.
Right,
Do you
right.
do social media, Larry?
Yeah, yeah. Not too much, not too much on Twitter. Every once in a while I check out Dr. Chloe Carmichael and a few others, but not very much, And more I'm kind of like old school, like Facebook, and every once in a while Instagram.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So for anyone who's just now joining, I'm sitting here live with Dr. Larry Beer, who is a fellow clinical psychologist. And as a psychologist, I will just say it means so much to me to have the support of other psychologists, especially around a book like this that centers around a psychology topic like anxiety. So Larry, you're holding up your book. Thank you
It
so
is.
much.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I've been previewing it. It's really good, Chloe. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have there been any parts of it that you, as a therapist yourself, said, "Oh yeah, I feel like I do that sometimes"?
Well, I feel like it's very easy just to get caught in like, well, this email came in, I'll just do this, and just like start operating without a lack of organization. And so that's just one thing that I just in just reading the introduction really just just really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, the way that we have to be able to keep watch over our thoughts and have that, I call it metacognition with
Mhm.
mindfulness is really our ability to just keep a good bird's eye view of our brain and keep track of all the thoughts going on in our high functioning heads, right?
Exactly. And try and manage them effectively, because I mean, like what you say in the book is that some of the techniques that used to work, at previous times in your life, when you get into the real world and you get to more advanced stages of your career, you need to kind of adapt with some other kinds of techniques that can just help you be more successful. I mean, that's what worked for you, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And, one of the things I've been thinking about, Larry, and I put this into the book a little bit, although it's like maybe something I'm still developing the idea more, but I'm curious what you think. So you talked about how old techniques work up to a point and then maybe not so much anymore, and we need new techniques.
Right.
So one of the things I've been thinking about is that a lot of driven, kind of perfectionist people, even a little
Mm-hmm.
bit like myself, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
even potentially about you a little bit. Who knows? You seem pretty, on point to me. But for a lot of us, we started having kind of a really tough, self-disciplined attitude in our teens or early 20s. And for me, before the executive lobe of our brain was fully formed, I actually think I needed some super tough self-talk, like
Right. Right.
you better freaking study for that
Right.
test or
Right.
your life is going to be over and you're not going to go anywhere and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of like as a teenager or a super young adult, I almost needed that type of outsized grab you by the shoulders and shake you and tell you kind of self-discipline. And then I think as I got older and my executive lobe developed a little bit more and I was able to just keep myself on track naturally a little bit better. And the executive lobe, of course, thinks about future consequences naturally. So I didn't necessarily need to be going so over the top, with the tough talk of self-discipline. And that's why I think that some of the techniques that I used on myself needed to be revised. Do you think there's any like credence to the whole executive lobe changing the way we need to talk to ourselves thing?
Um, you know, I hadn't really thought of that, in that way, but definitely I think we need to keep adapting, just like we've had to do this last year, it's like some of the old ways, they just don't work like they once did. And it's a trade-off. The trade being like, you do the old form of ways that you just described over there and you get successful in some ways, but it puts just so much stress on you that maybe there's a better balance between still like striving for excellence but being a little bit more gentle with yourself and being a little bit more organized in a different kind of way.
Yeah, I think though for me, like when we talk about maybe being a little bit more gentle with ourselves, what myself and I think a lot of the, types of clients that I work with, like we're like these kind of like
Yeah.
crazy New Yorkers, when we think, to me
I
at
used to
least,
be one of those.
exactly, that's right. And so when
Then
we
I
think
moved to
about,
Kalamazoo.
which is kind of like my neck of the woods natively, right? But so sometimes
Yeah.
when we think about being gentler on ourselves, for a lot of us,
Right.
I think that we think about, oh, well, that means I'm going to drop my standards.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
that means I'm going to just kind of get lax about mistakes. And what I want people to know is that by ceasing to waste their energy on all of that overblown criticism,
Mm-hmm.
they'll actually do better if they're able to put that energy into
Channel it.
actually just working and doing and knocking out the steps and growing the skills. So when we think about being gentler on ourselves, we're really not just dropping our standards. We're not putting less energy towards our goals.
Mm-hmm.
We're just making sure we're using that energy super strategically towards our goals.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and more efficiently, and sometimes the skills that work at one stage of life, they just don't work in the same way. But it's hard to change it because we trust those other skills. But if we don't change it, then we're not going to be as successful as we could be. And I define success not just in terms of just like, having making tons of money, but also just being able to enjoy your life and have a really good life.
Definitely. Although, I mean, the money part certainly doesn't hurt, right?
No, that
Um,
that
you
can come
know,
in. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, money to be able to, travel and do the things we want to do. But of course, at the same time, I mean, we've all known people that, they made incredible amounts of money, but yet they could never really stop and enjoy it because they didn't learn, that part, or maybe they got so caught up in, beating themselves up to like make that money that they forgot how to actually enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, so many people walking around just doing incredible things and just never feeling good enough.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, again, to me, it's such an interesting thing because that never feeling good enough for some people becomes that driver towards
Yeah, yeah,
self-improvement.
yeah,
And so
that's true.
that's, yes. And so that's why, like, for me, the book Nervous Energy is really about learning how to locate those anxieties, like that fear of not being good enough or whatever. And thinking about how to take that nervousness about the fear that you're not good enough and then put that energy into actually improving yourself, into actually,
Mhm.
becoming somebody that you feel more proud of, or just recognizing, in fact, you're already there. And this I'm not good enough thing is just some kind of a vestige from the past. And then maybe learning some techniques like the thought replacement one in the book to override
Mhm.
those thoughts from the past if they're no longer productive.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the meat, to really studying some of the techniques, really exploring some of the techniques that you talk about in the book. I mean, I haven't really had the chance yet to really do that. But when I saw the book, what came to my mind? I don't know if, you would have thought this, but I mean, Sigmund Freud. Okay, because he said the healthiest defense mechanism that we have is sublimation. And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about in this book is directing this nervous energy into really productive kind of ways.
Wow, that's really powerful, Larry. I hadn't thought of that, and you're right. I never would ever compare myself to Freud, but you may be right. It may be true. So basically, people can take that, nervous energy, that restlessness, and sublimate it into drive and productivity and fulfillment. I'm curious, though, Larry. Like, you obviously know more about Freud than I do. What would be like the original drive that nervous energy would trace back to in Freudian terms? What would you think?
Well, here's my disclaimer. I really don't know that much about Freud. It's just one of those things I always remembered about him because I like things that just make sense. And that just like makes sense, like let's go and all of us have like this um energy in us, this he, um struggle within us, and how do we direct it into ways that is just going to help us be most productive for ourselves, and not productive not just in terms of achievement, but productive in terms of helping us develop the lives that we want to have, finding a good partner, having a good relationship, having a good family.
Yeah, definitely. So, Larry, I can't believe how time flies.
And
I asked you to join up here with
thank
me
you
for
so
15
much.
minutes. Thank you. Yes,
It's a true honor, Chloe. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your book launch, and I'm really excited to read this. Once again, Nervous Energy by Dr. Chloe Carmichael. See you,
thank you
Chloe.
so much. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Larry Beer. And thank you so much to everyone who joined me. And we'll be back on later in a short while with another friend. So thanks, everybody.